Okay, Saturday morning, headed out to Sterling. Gonna do some
I got my keys 5 years ago.
check engine lights on my own truck. Okie dokie. Well, we're gonna be working on cars today and my own truck. See you at the shop. Well, good morning. So we started up the shop truck this morning and it has a check engine light. Thought we could take this opportunity to show you the steps of what we do when we have a check engine light on a car. Let's dive in. Alright, so we have our scan tool hooked up to the OBD2 port, which is usually located somewhere under the dash on pretty much 99% of all vehicles. Let's pull the code on this thing and see what direction we need to head. Pulling codes on check engine lights is generally thought by most as doing some type of diagnosis, but it's actually not. There is no diagnosis performed when you're pulling a code. Think of it like a road map. It really just kind of gives you the area where the problem is. Good morning, Ryan.
Happy Saturday.
Oh man, happy Saturday. Okay, so we have the code on our shop truck. It's a 2195. A lot of parts stores will pull a code. They'll look up what that code corresponds to. In this case, it's an oxygen sensor, and they'll say you need an oxygen sensor. The problem with that is you put an oxygen sensor in this one, and it probably is not going to fix it. So you have an oxygen sensor code, but it's probably not the oxygen sensor causing the issue. Now, we're doing some research here, and the most common failure with that code is actually something called a mass airflow sensor. Okay, so 22 times this car has been repaired with a mass airflow, not an oxygen sensor, when the 2195 code is present. So, diagnosis. Let's talk about that real quick. If we pull a code and we just replace the part that's kind of corresponding with that code, it's a good chance it might not fix your car. So sometimes diagnosis is needed. Diag. Need diag. That's what our technicians always say. Need diag. And sometimes the code might fix a problem, but for what we're trying to do, which is give the customer an honest, fair estimate and right direction to fix their car, we need to check car out. So let's go test those components. Let's look at the mass airflow and see what we see.
I forgot what that thing is.
Okay, so mass airflow sensor, that's what we need to check on this one. This one's slightly unique because we have kind of boogered with that sensor and done some performance modifications to this truck, so those modifications could probably be causing our issue. So this truck has an aftermarket supercharger, and on the intercooler, the mass airflow sensor, this guy, has been relocated. It's not broken, and all the wires are hooked up to it. Let's see what we got for readings. Ryan, go ahead and start that hot rod up. Go ahead and cut it off, Rod. So, what we want to generally see is, let's see here, about 7 grams a second at idle. Now, here's the interesting thing. We've kind of changed this up. We'll no longer get 7 grams a second at idle on this engine because of what we've done to the engine. An engine relies on the suction force of it running to pull air into it, and we have put a supercharger on this which forces air into the engine. So this mass airflow sensor here is trying to read how much air is going into the engine, and we are forcing more air than should be into the engine. So check engine light was probably caused by us. Good thing this is our shop truck and not a customer's vehicle. So pretty simple. We're going to clear the code and see what happens. Diagnosis. It's not always cut and dry. It's not pulling a code and wham, that's the answer. There's some checking on things that need to be done. Okay, so back to our check engine light on the shop truck. So we cleared the code and we put some miles on it. No code, didn't come back. So to kind of reiterate, if you pull a code on a car and you just say, it needs an oxygen sensor because it has an oxygen sensor code, there's a good chance you're throwing a part on a car that
May or may not fix it.
So, need diag. Diag's important. In this case, if this was our customer's car, we would have gone through the whole process of what we did today. We would have said, hey, we're going to clear the code, see what happens. Cruise down the street, didn't come back on, and no oxygen sensor, no charge for diag because we didn't do any diag. But that's the problem with going to a little quick spot parts store and getting your code pulled and then just throwing parts at it.
Crossing your fingers.
Crossing them fingers. 4-leaf clover type stuff. So anyway, shop truck, it's got no check engine light. Again, the whole reason it was on was probably caused by the performance modifications that we did to it. An engineer who's way smarter than us built that thing to run without a supercharger. So unfortunately, superchargers are much cooler.
Way cooler. Fixed it.
So cool. Anyway, diag. So next time you go to a shop and they say we need to do some diagnostic, it's probably a good idea to follow that route. Anyway, happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
Boom.